Well, I'm sorry to say this, Clay, but it looks like we're going to have to cut the podcast something pretty short because it looks like Amy and I are getting a divorce. She found out that I was pickling my prick in the cunt brine of another, and it's just been downhill since then.
Well, Wes, you know what they say, and please apologize to your wife if she ever hears me say this. But the world abounds in cunt of every kind.
It's true. Well,
please, Amy. I apologize.
I can feel her anger coming up the stairs.
We're just doing a bit here.
This is what the audience demands. She understands, but you've perked me up. I am fully upright.
I have to say, this had some of the nastiest lines, I think, of the whole series so far. Mm-hmm.
David Milch's pen was smoking as he was writing this script.
Just real angry, real nasty.
Focusing on one character in particular, I think. But we are here after our own season break to talk about the first episode of the second season of Deadwood. And this one's called A Lie Agreed Upon Part 1. The only two-parter in the show's history, but we're going to be talking about just Part 1 in this episode. So we're going to play the music. We'll take a little bit of a break. We'll come back, and we'll break it down.
You're listening to a podcast that is a lie agreed upon. Join Wes and Clay as they discuss HBO's Deadwood and tell you something pretty.
Before too much time passes, Clay, I did want to say that there needs to be some kind of pickle product that is based on that Tolliver line about because there might be some kind of rights being infringed there, but it's just too, forget about that stork. Who's the stork, the mascot for? Vlasic? Is it Vlasic?
Yeah, I think so, yes.
Is that the only pickle brand that anyone knows is Vlasic Pickles? There might be some Heinz. Heinz makes pickles, I'd assume. They must make
probably
pickles.
Yeah, that seems on brand. They make relish. They already got They already have the pickles in house. They just haven't chopped them yet.
Someone needs to get that stork to say that Cy Tolliver line and just make that an ad for Vlasic Pickles. I think that stork talks in the.
If there was ever a use for AI voice cloning, is to get the cartoon mascot of a pickle company to say one of the most horrible things you could say about a woman.
Why is it a stork mascot for Vlasic Pickles? That's a strange. I haven't seen those ads in a long time. I don't even know if that company still exists.
I know. When was the last time you saw a pickle ad of any kind?
No, it's true. I make my own pickles these days.
Yeah.
I think I got the time.
We traveled with that woman and her boy.
While the lady was traveling with you, her husband, the sheriff, was pickling his prick in the cunt brine of another.
This is A Lie Agreed Upon, Part 1, the first episode of the second season of Deadwood. It was directed by Ed Bianchi, written by David Milch. In this one, Joanie Stubbs awaits the arrival of Stagecoach of 3 prostitutes and an old friend, Maddie, who will serve as the madam in her new brothel. The prostitutes share the stagecoach with Bullock's wife and child. Swearengen learns that the territorial governor has divided the country around Deadwood into 3 counties, each with its own commissioner from Yankton. Murder the 3 of them, see how they like being commissioners after they're dead, Doherty tells Swearengen. Bullock, fresh from his tryst with Alma, steps off the Grand Central wearing his sheriff's badge. Bullock and Swearengen fight like dogs in the street. The stagecoach with Bullock's wife and child pulls up. Swearengen looks up from the carnage. Welcome to fucking Deadwood, he says. Alma visits the hardware store for a closer look at Bullock's wife, Martha. Departing the house he built for his wife and boy, Bullock walks back to the Grand Central and into Alma's arms. So, we're at the start of season 2, which is kind of progress. We're 1/3 of the way through our little show here, talking about Deadwood. And the production team at this point is pretty much what they had in the first season. So you've got Milch, Jody Worth, Elizabeth Sarnoff, Ted Mann, and Ed Bianchi are the producers and writers on the show. Bianchi directs a lot of the episodes too. And I just thought that this was interesting. So from the Deadwood Bible, it says, Milch and his writers were about 5 weeks out from production. They needed to agree on an outline for the season-long story and drill down on individual scripts because nobody wanted a repeat of the first season where they ran behind. When Ed Bianchi arrived on set 4 weeks ahead of the start date of production, there were pages, 12 of them. Bianchi says, so I read them, and they're fantastic. And then he rewrote those 12 pages for a month until we started shooting. He never progressed. He literally rewrote those 12 pages. And I'm not sure that they got better. They didn't get worse. One was as good as the other. It was almost like he couldn't choose. And then once the show started shooting, he could find that he could start writing the rest. He's a gambler, and I think he needed the juice to deliver. So the 12 pages are the 12 pages that start off this episode itself, which is all I agreed upon, part 1. So
For him, the action is the juice.
it is the juice.
R.I.P. Tom Sizemore.
When you feel the juice coming around the corner, you got to make lemonade. So
When you feel the juice coming around the corner, you better hope you're not within kissing distance of his wife.
What'd you think of this one? This is all I agreed upon, part 1.
I thought it was good. I don't know if it was a great season opener.
Oh, interesting. Yep.
Because I found it to be more so than the first season. I found it to be very sort of dense to try and really get into what was going on. Because a lot of the talking was the stylization of the dialogue plus how oblique they are about what they're talking about was kind of dense. But mostly I was just kind of taken off guard by how much it was jumping around.
Yep.
And how choppy it was at the beginning. And it's like, and it was more so than the style of the filmmaking and whatnot. It felt very strange to me that they picked up where they did in the story, because it felt like they jumped over a lot of stuff that most other shows would kind of, their second season would be about.
Yeah, you mean in terms of timing? Because just to be clear, like a couple months have passed since the first season.
Like you have Bullock's been the sheriff for 2 months. Joanie has established her place. Eddie apparently is just gone. Is he just gone from the show?
Yes, he's gone from the show.
Yeah, he's just gone from the show.
Yep. He filmed he filmed a death scene in the season finale of the first season, and they did not choose to include it in the episode. They tried to call him back to do his death scene in this episode, and he refused to come back to the show. So they just wrote it out that way by saying that he left town. Yeah. That's
interesting. Do you know how he was supposed to die?
Cy Tolliver was supposed to kill him.
Oh, okay.
I think he was supposed to find out about him stealing from him in that incredibly slow process of glad handing a couple chips every day to pay off Joanie's
Apparently,
apartment.
he was very good at it because he got Joanie enough money for a down payment on a plot of land, or whatever, or a building or whatever.
Yep.
But yeah, like that felt strange that they just kind of leapt over all that stuff.
Feels like a relic of TV past, doesn't it? Like where things would happen between seasons and they wouldn't have a way to fix it in between. It doesn't feel like modern TV does that as much.
Yeah, yeah. And like the fight between Bullock and Swearengen feels like it either should have been in the season finale of the first season or a few episodes down the road of the second season, because it seems to be, I mean, obviously it's instigated more so by Swearengen's state of mind and physical being, than anything else. But it feels like it's the two of them coming to blows because, I mean, Swearengen kind of says in dialogue that Bullock isn't exactly what he thought he was going to be in terms of being helpful to Al as the sheriff. And it's kind of strange that they just kind of jump over all that stuff. But I mean, I guess it depends on what your show cares about, and I guess they decided the story they wanted to tell was further down the line. It was just jarring to me. And so to come back and see how much stuff had, maybe it's because we're watching these so close together and there isn't like the usual break between seasons.
Right. You don't have actual summer to forget about the episodes or something.
Yeah. And like, if you're not watching the show for 3 months and you come back and the people have advanced 3 months, it might not feel as weird as it does here, where it's just like the next thing they do, a lot of stuff has happened.
Yeah. I was kind of struck by
We didn't even get to meet Bummer Dan.
No. I mean, he has the Paramount Plus Shorts episodes that you're supposed to watch in between the seasons.
You know what I didn't like about the Bummer Dan shorts? Too much fan service.
Yeah, it was kind of, obviously it was a money grab because they knew that people were going to subscribe to Bummer Dan content no matter what the price was.
Bummer Dan universe when is what we're asking.
But yeah, so I mean, if you were wondering in the shorts, that's when the guy actually got pissed on. So if you were confused about what was going on, you needed to watch that content.
Yes.
I was surprised mostly.
Although the shorts technically aren't actually canon, is what I've read.
Well, yeah, he wasn't wearing shorts when he pissed on him. So it was
But I'm pumped.
But I was mostly I had a couple takeaways from it. So the first one, I was surprised by how much exposition is done to explain where we were last season. There's a lot of it.
Yeah.
And I think that ties into your, like, we're watching this right in a row and there's usually a month break or, there's usually a good portion of time between seasons on HBO. And that struck me, how often characters had to somewhat awkwardly restate where they were and what they were doing for whatever reason. When it seemed, because we've been watching it week by week, it seemed obvious to me where they were. So that struck me. The bigger picture is, though, I remember season 2 being my least favorite season out of all of them. And I specifically remember that the opening couple episodes of season 2 feel slow and that they don't have the same sort of pizzazz that the first season did, which left me a little bit surprised because I loved this episode. I thought that this was really good, and I really had a lot of fun watching this one. So I don't know if my perception on season 2 is going to change, but that's my general takeaway that I am operating from, is that I generally remember season 2 to be the weakest of the seasons, although I might just be wrong about that, and we'll see how it goes. But I do remember the early episodes being a little bit off. Here, though, I thought the thing that I liked about this is that it's clearly an episode that has come in with a little bit of a break for the writers, so there's like an extra bit of pizzazz to it. It's and I think that the actors have grown and Milch has grown in understanding how to write characters, but like so many of the scenes are so fucking funny in this one. The when Dan and Al are talking about the telegraph poles coming into town, and he's like, he's like, I don't think it's much different from just getting a letter. He's like, when the fuck did you last get a letter from a stranger? And he says, when I heard bad news about Pa. He says, bad fucking news.
Messages from invisible sources, or what some people think of as progress.
Well, ain't the heathens use smoke signals all through recorded history?
How's that a fucking recommendation?
Well, it seems to me like letters posted one person to another is just a slower version of the same idea.
When's the last time you got a fucking letter from a stranger?
Bad news about Paul.
Bad news. It tries against our interests is our sole communications from strangers. So by all means, let's plant poles all across the country, festoon the cocksucker with wires to hurry the sorry word and blinker our judgments of motive, huh?
He's giving it more thought than me.
Ain't the state of things cloudy enough? Don't we face enough fucking imponderables?
Well, by God, you give the word, Al, and them poles will be kindling.
The scene where Al, after the fight, and Al's beaten up and he's trying to dress himself and he's in the bar and he impersonates EB is hysterical.
My God. Unbelievable.
That whole sequence is astounding. Like even the makeup that Swearengen is wearing for his fucked up face and stuff like that is great.
Detail Bullock's condition.
The worse for wear. No clarity to his look or focus, as I could cite in other combatants.
Touch me, EB. I'll put your nose through your fucking brain. Now, did he state his further intentions?
To have his gun and badge back.
In what fucking tone?
Well, I'd shy from putting a name on it, Al. He was talking to an 8-year-old.
Sound like he'd be coming back for more?
Well, I'd hate to guess and be wrong.
New whores on that coach, huh? Find out where they'll be working.
I could take him his gun and badge, plumb his intent as we talked.
And how would that chat start, EB, huh?
Here's your hardware, and as he looks a cunt anyway, I would like it to have this rose. I'll look into the new whores.
I just feel that it's a super dense episode that has a lot going on and they have to remind you of things, but I thought that the individual scenes burned so brightly in this one in a way that maybe the first season never really captured consistently across an episode, where there were great scenes in previous episodes of the first season, but this one just had one after another. Like Tolliver's at his worst, and he's just awful. Swearengen's beat up. Bullock and Alma has come to a head, and all this stuff. It's got a lot going on, but I really like the scenes in it.
I think that's part of what it is for me. Like I agree. I really liked what they were doing. The individual scenes were really good, but they are so high intensity right out of the gate that it feels like it's the culmination of something instead of the beginning of something, I guess.
Yeah.
Which maybe is by design. I don't know. Like I was very interested, excuse me, in the musical choice for the first 10 minutes or so, because I felt like I was watching Heat or The Dark Knight or something, because there was just this low, increasingly aggressive hum in the background that climaxes in the fight between Al and Seth. Yeah. Which, with that in mind, it's like, okay, that makes sense. But the scenes that they're showing you on top of that hum don't necessarily match up with the I don't know. There's just like I got what they were doing, but it's weird feeling this like aggressive, tension rising hum over Seth Bullock talking to Alma about paperwork about her gold claim. That being said,
that was all a front for their passion.
Oh, of course, yes. Yeah, like I think Powers Booth gets more to do in this episode than he did the entire first season, I think.
Yeah.
And he really goes for it. They really I'm most interested to see what they do with Cy this season because of this episode.
Yeah.
Because he's so off his rocker and side what's the word I'm looking for? Just taken off guard by what the arrival of the Borg Queen.
Yes, yeah. The other thing that ties this into a Star Trek reference is that Alice Kriege is the Borg Queen from First Contact, and she's Maddie, the madam who comes to Joanie's rescue in this one.
I feel like the only things I've ever seen her in are First Contact, this, and Gretel and Hansel, where she plays the witch,
the horror movie, like the recent horror movie. Yeah, and
I feel like she only has one style of acting that she does in every one of these things, where she's kind of like aloof, and
aloof,
quiet,
quiet, like cold, sort of. Because she does have Borg Queen vibes in this one. She's not super emotional or anything like that. Although it's really the women in this one are just trying to sort of fend off Tolliver, and it's not to aggravate him, so they're relatively restrained around him.
It's another one, too, where she shows up and there's a bit of an Andy Kramed kind of thing where it's Cy clearly knows this woman.
Yes.
But we don't know why he knows this woman or how. There's just some sort of... There's a lot of stuff being unsaid that is being taken into account of the scene that the two of them are doing.
Yeah.
But we don't know what that is.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, she's come in to help Joanie set up her chez ami, her new place that she got from money that was stolen by Eddie from Cy Tolliver. And then Tolliver, recognizing that, decides that because there was money stolen from him, he now owns a piece of the chez ami. So that'll be the way that goes. We can talk about Cy, certainly. I think that's the key, the main character of this one, interestingly, is Bullock, I think. Even more than Swearengen and everything like that. I think that this is really a Bullock episode, and I'm pretty sure the next episode is also a Bullock thing because it deals with a lot of the Bullock fallout. But yeah, this is the episode where his family, his wife and child have arrived in Deadwood now. And the thing that's setting up Al to be so frustrated with Bullock is that the territorial control has been dividing the area into these counties that Swearengen is always talking about, and the governors or the stewards of all the counties are not hill people, so they're not people from the area. They've just been politically appointed to be governors or whatever the term is for out there. And this is making it difficult for Swearengen to do the things that he wants to do, and it's the sort of battle about how much federal control is going to come in versus how much local control is going to exist in Deadwood, all the usual sort of arguments that we still have to this day. And Swearengen is annoyed with Bullock because Bullock has been just basically having the summer of 69 Bryan Adams summer with Alma. And Al thinks that Bullock is not paying enough attention to the larger thing that's going on in the camp, and that he's too obsessed with Alma, and that he's not paying attention to the things that really matter for everybody on a larger sense. And that's what their disagreement is about, and that's what he sort of goads Seth into a fight by insulting him, and Seth takes him up on that offer. But that's the thing. So what's interesting to me is that Bullock is clearly in the wrong from his actions on every moment of this episode. Really, like Bullock is fairly unsympathetic here. He gets in a fight with Swearengen when Swearengen mostly is just insulting him because he's not paying attention to the larger point of things. He has his horribly embarrassing family interactions with Alma. He leaves Alma out on the lurch, and then at the very end, it's just filled with this unspoken male and female interaction that the characters have to have, which is just that Martha Bullock is like furious at him. So that's why he can't go into the house at the end, because he knows that he fucked up so badly, and so he only has one place.
Is that what's going on there?
Yeah. So
because I couldn't track what the point of that. Like I just got lost in how impenetrably stoic Bullock's relationship with his wife is. And so
his brother's wife, to be fair, I guess.
Yes.
Yeah.
Where he's saying all this stuff about not going into the house, and I wasn't really catching a lot of angry vibes from his wife.
No, Anna Gunn does a great job in this one. She has to be angry without being angry. You know, it's her role as the mother of the house and the wife of the sheriff.
Yeah,
at this point.
And so he's saying all this like oblique stuff about not being able to go into the house, and his thoughts on the matter being in the letter.
Yeah, and the kid doesn't understand. His son doesn't understand because he's not getting the argument that his parents are having and stuff like that.
Yeah, and then they finally read the letter, and it's like, I chose pine for the house. And I'm like, oh, I get it. Like that explained nothing. I was not totally catching what the vibe was supposed to be there.
Yeah. So I
thought the scene to me played more like Martha is like, can we go in the house? And he's just being a fucking weirdo about it, where he's like, it's all in the letter. I have to go now. She's like, well, can we go in the house? He's like, listen.
You got a key.
I don't know. I gave you. Yeah, it's very strange.
Yeah, I think it's just it's the depth of the writing, because that misdirect is intentional. So like you're supposed to be confused about what Bullock is talking about, and you think that his true feelings or that he's talked about Alma would be in the letter, but that's clearly not what he's talking about. He's being written where he's speaking out of both sides of his mouth about, he's not admitting to Martha about his feelings for Alma, and it's just sort of laying the trap for you as a viewer to think that he has written that in his letter, when he's always talked about is how he built the house for them. So yeah, that's the fight that they're having was something that is sort of like relative. Like, I didn't remember this fight happening this way this early, and it's mostly, I think, because Martha Bullock is so stoic and unable to show how she really feels about things, because she's basically been horribly embarrassed here, because it's clear from the interaction with Alma in the store where Saul is getting his surgery and Alma comes in and gives him a gift basket, that everyone in the town knows what's been going on here. And Alma has made this horrible, selfish decision to come in and sort of size up her rival that's come into town. And so Martha Bullock is just in this awkward position of having to go to a new place, grin and bear this like horrific insult that's come her way. And then you can't be angry with your husband because it's not. In a lot of ways, what's interesting about the episode is that it's about the relationship between men and women, and how women have almost no power in this, and they have to be careful about what they do, because if they say or do the wrong thing, whether it be to Cy Tolliver, they might get stabbed, or if it's to Seth Bullock, you're out of a place with your child and you have no home and no one to support you at that point. So it's walking that fine line where women have to be careful around the men of the town, because there's a variety of different options that could come their way.
Yeah, it's the thing in the letter that did sort of parse through it a bit for me is that the end of the letter is him saying essentially that he's going to do everything he can to be a father to his brother's son and a husband to his brother's wife, and that is sort of emphasizes the embarrassment that I think he feels.
Yeah,
because he has already failed in doing that, and they just got to town.
Yep,
and given the way that the episode ends, doesn't seem like he's going to be changing his ways anytime soon.
And that's why I get so mad at Swearengen too, right? Because Swearengen is
Right.
calling him out on this sort of, he handpicked or he wanted Bullock because Bullock is this sort of like at least alleged paragon of virtue for being the sheriff, where he's going to handle things appropriately. That's why Swearengen wants him in there. And the walking contradiction is just that he can't even hold his personal life together in a way that's honorable. So why can't he? He's failing at his sheriff duties because his personal life is such a shamble, and he's not paying attention to the things that matter.
Yeah, I mean, he is kind of again, I feel like there's some of this stuff is difficult to parse out because it is stuff that I think would be easier to get if we got to see some more of this in action. Where I think the place where the last season ends it is that Bullock has taken up the position of being the sheriff as much for his own personal gain as anything else.
Yep. To defend himself against the Alma's family.
And so to show to in this episode try to show that he's being derelict of his official duty for personal reasons, I think they could have been a little bit clearer, because so much of it comes out through this dense dialogue.
Yep.
That it is the kind of thing where it's like, oh, maybe if we got a couple episodes of actually seeing that Bullock is kind of skirting what he should be focusing on.
Well, I mean, to be fair, he is the thing that Swearengen is watching him do is that he is helping Alma move her gold out of the town, which annoys Swearengen because Swearengen thinks that this is similar to how the federal government is coming in and sort of like taking over, and what Alma Garret is doing instead of keeping the money in the town and sort of making it their own thing, she's extracting the wealth and shipping it off to back home, basically. Yeah. And so what Bullock is doing is he's protecting this to allow that to happen, and he's also fucking Alma there too. So it's like this completely selfish act that Bullock is spending his morning doing.
Right.
And Swearengen is watching him from across the balcony do this, and that's what's so upsetting to him.
Self-deceiving cocksucker I am. I thought when America took us in, Bullock could prove a fucking resource. Look at him, striding out like some randy maniac bishop. Sheriff! About his duties to the camp, huh? Luck trouble didn't jump out earlier, huh, Bullock? Might have found you mid-thrust at other business. What is it? Taken by a vision? You would not want to be staring like that at me.
It's only Bummer Dan, but I think he's killed.
Be where I can find you.
I ain't going no place.
So I think it's there. It's just the problem is that Swearengen's insults are so opaque as to what he's talking about that it's hard to understand what he means. But that's a Swearengen characteristic, I think.
Yeah, and I'm not saying it's bad because I do enjoy the way that this is all written. But this was the first one where I felt like it was particularly dense as far as parsing through what he and some of the other characters who are prone to talk like this were talking about.
Yeah.
Like the scene with the first scene with Bosch, where he comes in and tells him what's going on regarding the guys coming in from Yankton.
Yeah,
I had to hit the 15-second button a couple times just because I kept missing words.
Oh, okay. Just when he's talking about the governors or whatever being appointed.
Yeah. They're just they're firing through so much stuff, and I would like miss a word, and it was always the word that was like important to what the next thing was. So I had to go back like, what's going on? Okay, these guys. okay, they're from the same till as the other people.
They got their hands in the same cookie jar.
Are we talking about elected officials, or are we talking about like money?
That's what's interesting to me, because I don't find I mean, I'm obviously familiar with the show at this point, but I did learn that what I thought was a complicated plot in the show is not actually very complicated.
Right.
You know?
Yes.
It's fairly simple, but the way that they talk about it makes it seem like it's much more complicated and like convoluted than it actually is. Mm-hmm. Really, it's just Al's upset that the governors have not been Hill people appointees, and that's like an annoying thing that's going to steal some money from him. So
yeah,
it's but it's clear. I think the good example is what we just said, which is that his insults to Bullock and the way that he talks to Bullock before they get into their fight. He's a little bit more clear before they get into their fight with each other. Is not super obvious, and it's almost surprising to me that Bullock fully understands what he's talking about. You know, like Bullock understands that he's being insulted quite viciously, and he reacts accordingly that way.
Yeah, it does seem like the kind of thing where it's one of those things that only Al. It's one of those things that Al is really extremely upset about, but nobody else quite understands what the deal is.
Yeah. Bullock has that line, meaning what? Yankton's making its move without more insults.
Right.
You know, when Swearengen's yelling at him. So he doesn't quite pick up on it, but that's always the way that Al speaks, is kind of like vague about things.
Yeah, and I think like I think I identify with characters like Johnny more than anybody else sometimes, where something happens and Johnny just kind of looks at Dan and is like, do I need to do anything?
Yep.
Or what is he on about?
They play it off,
and then I just shoot at whoever's giving me the stink
You get
eye.
the big gun. You want me to get the big gun? And they play on that thing about Swearengen too. In the season finale of the first season, because he's angry with Trixie, he calls her the other one constantly, and the other characters kind of, as a joke, the characters know who he's talking about, and so they say, "I'll go get Trixie," and that kind of upsets him. You can see his reaction that his distress is so obvious to them that he can't be as vague as he wants, because they still understand what he's talking about.
Yeah,
it's so Swearengen is not as central. He's really just supposed to be the one. He's like the Greek choir of this episode, who's explaining what Bullock's mindset is and calling him out at him being obviously getting into a fight, which Bullock gets the better on him over by the end. Although the boy coming up at the end unmans Swearengen, as he says, and he wasn't able to kill Bullock. But Al gets the worst of the fight. And I like the fight scene, too. It's pretty realistic. They don't really land a lot of they don't connect on a lot of punches, and that was apparently intentional. They just end up pushing each other over the balcony and falling into the ground.
Yeah. I on a recent AEW pay-per-view, they were doing a street fight match with two tag teams of women wrestlers.
Yep.
And one of the spots towards the end of the match was one girl powerbombed the other girl off the stage, like where the ramp is leading down to the ring. Was supposed to be through a table, but there was only one table, and they kind of overshot it a bit. So the person doing the move landed on the table, and the person taking the move essentially got powerbombed from 5 feet, 10 feet off the ground onto concrete.
Yep.
And it came out recently. She seemed to be okay, but it came out recently that she had dislocated ribs.
Sure.
Which I don't even know what that means, but it sounds more painful than if they had just been broken.
Yeah, than broken. Yeah. Because your ribs connect to your spine.
The sternum and the spine.
Yeah, so you just pop something out right there.
Blech. Anyway, it seems like he's got dislocated ribs or something.
Yeah, and Al's sick outside of that, obviously, because he's having trouble peeing.
Yeah, UTI or something.
Which he attributes to age. When Bullock comes in, he says he's trying to pee into the chamber pot, and Bullock comes in, and they're about to fight, and Swearengen says, "Age impedes my stream, not fucking fear of you."
I really liked how self-conscious he got about that stuff. Like when he yells at Jewel,
yeah,
implying that he had pissed over the the ledge of the balcony, which is why there wasn't as much piss in his pot there.
Yeah. Well, he thinks that she's up to something too, because she mentions that she gets Bullock's gun and badge from the room. She says she went in there to change his chamber pot, and he's like, "Is that some underhanded comments about my state of being or something like that?" She denies it. Yeah, so he's not doing particularly well. He's not feeling very well. Did you anything in particular you would want to discuss? I mean, there's the women thing is the larger point around it, but the scenes continue to just be exceptional, I think. The scene with Al and the guys and EB is hysterical. EB comes in and he's like, it's like a Greek god battle or something like that. It's good. He's good.
I really liked everybody congregating in the bottom floor of the bar, expecting to get ready for something to break out that way, and then they just go flying over the side out to the street. Right. And like, they're in the street.
Yep, they're in the street. That turns into a colossal clusterfuck where a bunch of people get hurt. Charlie Utter gets the shotgun shot outside of his ear. Mm-hmm. Saul gets shot in the shoulder. And so everyone's a little bit worse for wear. But yeah, it's I like the gem scenes there with Dan and Silas are getting a little bit antagonistic towards each other too, because Silas pulled off Dan from killing Bullock. So there's things going on. They're building starting plot threads and things like that.
Dan has a good line. Not talking to Silas, but earlier I think he's talking to Johnny, and he has a very Al kind of line of dialogue where he's talking about something else, but he's clearly talking about himself.
Yeah.
I can't remember what it's something. I think it has something to do with the new people coming in and trusting them or something like that. I can't remember exactly.
Yeah, he's talking about the new government coming in, about how that's why Al is so upset, trying to explain that situation. And he's the subtext is you're saying he's talking about Silas coming into the group.
Yeah, which was, I feel like Dan doesn't usually get that sort of layered dialogue, so nice to see him get a little bit of that.
I thought this was the best Dan episode between the telegraph polls and the talking to Johnny about Silas. I feel like he's developed quite a bit into a character who has his own voice. He was mostly just a heavy in the first season, really.
Yeah. And he's got that. He does have that good line to Silas where what does he say? 1 out of 10 times somebody comes at me like that and I don't shoot them, and that was your one or something. That was your
one.
Yeah, it's good stuff.
Look, all I'm saying is I ain't your enemy.
Well, whatever you thought your intentions was, coming on me like you did, 9 times out of 10, that'll be the last fucking move you ever make.
Bullock will be coming back for his weapon.
To what intent?
Open question.
Well, we'll be ready. You've had you 1 out of 10.
And then Seth and Alma have their little tryst. They officially
very aggressively loud tryst, apparently.
Yeah, with the plaster coming down and everything. I mean, and that's that ties into the obliviousness of Seth and stuff like that. That Swearengen's so upset by.
I loved having the scene where Sarah Paulson on the show now.
Molly Parker?
No, where Sarah Paulson it has to wipe the plaster away from Sophia's book while she's trying to teach her.
Oh, yeah, Miss Isrenhausen, I think is the character's name. Yeah, she knocks the plaster off the little girl's head.
Yeah, I just thought that was a really good image of the her being neglectful of Sophia and all that kind of stuff. Yeah,
it's coming down on her head, I guess. Yeah, and I imagine. I can't imagine that the hotel structure is an incredibly stable thing back then when they threw those things up.
You know, I'll tell you, I can't remember if I've told this story on another podcast, but my girlfriend used to live in a house with a number of roommates.
Yep.
And one of them, who lived on the top floor, when he would have a female friend over.
Yeah, he was a powerful lover.
The activities were so aggressive, it would literally shake the whole house. And we're talking like a large 10, 11 room Victorian style house.
Yeah.
So this is a house that's been around for like 100 years. And I witnessed it. she had the room below his.
Yep.
And so I woke up one night at like 2:00 in the morning, and I'm like, why am I moving?
Getting everybody off. No, there's a supreme confidence to that, because you can't go hard like that for 7 seconds. You know what I mean? Like if you're gonna go that way, you've got to you're running a marathon at that point, because you got a name to maintain. Yeah, I don't think did we have any. No,
you're not going to enjoy this, but you're going to remember it.
It's all. That's why you go to those big theaters with the big sound systems, just so you feel it in your bones. Even if it's you're watching Star Wars prequels or something like that, you feel the sound.
Yeah, we did used to call him THX.
Oh, there you go. See, yeah. Dolby Surround. Is Thomas Dolby. Yeah, I don't think I had nothing weird like that. I feel that was still kind of a rare event. Like, although living in the Fenway, you would occasionally hear people going at it, and that was always just kind of it's like a very childish thrill. That even though 40 now, if I still heard it, I'd be like, turn the TV down. Something's happening somewhere. I have to go find out who it is.
After we've made love, are you sometimes happy?
Because I get up from the bed, is that why you wonder? I'll intend something. Come to myself realizing I've only stood or sat thinking about you. Just now that your toes are beautiful, when I'd intended to replenish the kindling.
I was raised believing dereliction of duty is the one sure way to happiness.
So often, with you, I've been perfectly happy.
A lie agreed upon. Oh, the sex scene. And also we learned that historical accuracy matters in armpit matters.
Yes. Yes. Yeah, I thought that I was really interested by the Tolliver stuff.
Yep. We can get to Tolliver.
He had a lot going on. Like, Powers Booth really is firing on a number of different cylinders at once in this episode, as far as him being furious, but being upset and embarrassed and all these different things. And it's, I found that the people in this show, the actors in this show, play anger in a so much more of a believable and relatable way than pretty much anything else that I've seen, because they're never just angry. There's always something else tangible that is the root of the anger they're expressing towards somebody else. Like, anytime Al gets angry at someone, even in this episode, the way that he speaks to Bullock is not just because he's pissed off about him being lackadaisical in his day-to-day whatever and not being aware of what's happening in Yankton. It's also because he's got a fucking prostate infection or something. Yeah. And it's, it's like there's and with Tolliver, he's just really hurt and embarrassed, and he is using that anger. He's using that as the basis to just hurl the most aggressive stuff he can at Joanie, short of actually like pulling a knife on her.
Yes.
And the thing that makes it the worse for him is that she completely just takes it. And or I should say, she lets it all just run right off of her, and she doesn't really give him much of a response. And that just is the thing that like stokes his anger even more. And it's just really, really well done. And I think a lot of this stuff in the hands of lesser actors is definitely not as good, because I think a lot of them might key into a single element of these performances, but not all of them at once.
Yeah, I think it's Powers Booth's best performance is Tolliver. He definitely has a lot going on, and he has to extend it for like long sequences of scenes. Tolliver to me is the most explicit example of the threat that women are under that this show kind of surprisingly is a large focus. Like the state of women is a surprisingly large focus of this show. And Tolliver's scenes are about that. Tolliver's scenes are about the threat that people like Joanie face. And they just do little things like he, you watch it very concerned that, especially after what you've seen the Tolliver is capable of doing, the entire scene is built around him yelling about things, but he's also doing little things like he keeps smacking stuff off the desk all the time. He touches her face, and you kind of expect him to hit her at that point.
Yeah.
It's just really they do it in a way that's not. There's no constant close-ups to like build tension. There's no like music that's like building and stuff like that where you think that something's going to happen. It's all done just through the performance. And when he's talking to Joanie initially, it's almost all done through that single camera shot of it's just the two shot where the two of them are looking at each other across the desk. And there's no real cuts or anything like that. They just let the actors go at it. And I'm just impressed by that it represents just the women's constant concern that like violence is imminent to them. And you have to kind of walk this fine line when dealing with people like Tolliver, and that you kind of have to let him, you have to be careful not to insult him because that'll cause some problem, but you also have to be able to stand up for yourself to get what you want. And Joanie walks that line pretty effectively, and it leaves Tolliver very frustrated. And it's just another building thing of like, we saw it in the first season that Tolliver's real trauma and like emotional problem is that he doesn't seem to be willing to be able to be abandoned by people. He just doesn't want that to happen ever. So you can read into his backstory however you want that to be. But Eddie betrayed him. He feels like Joanie's betraying him with the stolen money, and he is lashing out in every way that he can possible, including just outright denying that he's sending one of his whores to be a spy when that's actually what he is doing at the Shazami. But we'll see how that all pans out with their new place and how the girls over there work together.
Yeah, and the consideration of the women and how they're treated and the danger they constantly face is kind of, it's kind of what you have to get into it if you're going to be honest about the time period and have these sorts of characters in there. Because I mean, traditionally, Westerns don't exactly have a lot of great female characters. They're mostly the wives of the cowboys or someone they meet along the trail that just happens to be cool. Or it's
the reason for the righteousness to potentially just it's a male male genre.
Even Unforgiven, where they have that whole subplot involving the whores hiring the money and his buddy there to kill Lil Bill or whatever.
Yeah.
Even there, it's like they're kind of there as they're just there to support Will Money's chain. Like they're not really that interesting. Like they don't give them a ton to do.
No.
And so in this, for a movie like this, a show like this, to actually give these characters agency and give them realistic, if you want to call it that, story lines with weight and stuff, it's definitely something you have to get into.
Yeah, historically accurate, I think. And I talked about how initially, just like factually, that there were so few women in Deadwood when it was founded, and most of them were just prostitutes. So there wasn't a large family of contingency.
And that's the thing too, right? I mean, given the type of men that are here, they are very aggressive, very controlling. So the women who are there are going to be constantly under the threat of some sort of if they're not there as subjugated already, there's always the chance that they are going to be subjugated in some way, given the type of people who are in this town.
And I think the show is careful to draw comparisons there where Alma's not much better off in a lot of ways. Like Alma doesn't maybe have the constant threat, although she was raped by her father and stuff like that. There's not the constant threat of physical violence is not always there in the way that it is to Trixie and the rest of the whores, but Alma is similarly imprisoned in a way that she can't get what she wants. And here it's, it also kind of feeds into her flaws as a character, which is that she feels that she should be able to get whatever she wants, which is why she does the thing with Bullock here, and does the drop by in her scarlet letter red dress. Which
I know. That has to be on purpose,
yes,
right?
Yeah. So the adulteress shows up with her scarlet dress instead of just a letter stitched into it to embarrass herself, embarrass Bullock. And I find that scene funny just because, like, that's a great example of an acted scene because the dialogue there is just people going, "How are you? I'm good.
Yes.
How are you?"
Yeah.
You know?
I would love to know what the script for that actually looks like. Like, is any of that stuff written into the scene directions?
Right.
Or is it just you're looking at this page and goes, Alma, how are you? How do you do? Martha, how do you do? William, how do you do? This is my son William. William, how do you do? William, how do you, it's just okay, sure.
Yep.
Yes, but then you see it acted out and you're like, oh yeah, okay.
Mr. Bullock.
Mrs. Garret.
How are you feeling, Mr. Starr?
I've puked twice.
Mrs. Garret. Trixie.
Mrs. Garret.
Mr. Otter.
Ma'am, don't be alarmed. A lot of this damage is old.
May I introduce my wife, Martha, and our son, William. Mrs. Alma Garret.
How do you do? How do you do? How do you do, William?
How you do?
And Ellsworth, who superintends Mrs. Garrett's claim.
Ma'am. William.
How you do?
Yeah, I imagine it's all scene description and action description as opposed to just the dialogue of it. Or maybe Milch just turned around and was like, well, they took that in a different direction. I was expecting that just to be a, how are you? What's your name?
Well, yeah, I always wonder. I mean, I honestly haven't read enough scripts to know how this stuff is handled all the time. But typically, my understanding is that you don't want to over direct in your scripts. So I don't know how much of that is on the page in the descriptions, or how much of it is, okay, here's the thing, here's a general idea of the tension of the scene at the beginning, and then it kind of gets back into, once you get on stage and you get on the set, that's when you really kind of work it out.
There's to bring back to Deadwood, in the Deadwood Bible, they'd say that Milch was a big fan of putting those, what are they? I guess they are called sort of like act or scene, not scene description, but like actor, like the parenthetical action in a script where it's like it's in the dialogue box, but it's in the parentheses that explain how the actor is supposed to play it.
Like Alma parentheses reticent.
Yes, yeah, exactly. Milch was apparently the Swearengen tendency. Milch writes a lot of himself into Swearengen, obviously, and the Swearengen tendency to feel that he has explained something and not have anyone understand him is apparently something that was like, it's a big issue with him, apparently. And the joke would be that he would write, there was a little bit of drama between him and some of the writers in the second season, Jody Worth in particular. And just like Milch in his scripts would write in the parentheticals, even though Swearengen has explained this very clearly, the people listening do not understand. And so it would be like full sentences just saying like that, and then he would pass the script on to somebody. So his scripts are apparently filled with little things like that. So I imagine he was someone who existed largely in the unsaid really dialogue aspects of things.
Yeah. I actually just found the pilot script, but I couldn't find any other ones. I'm going to have to read through that. I'd be interested to see what it feels like.
I'll see if there's none in the book that I have, unfortunately. I would have thought that would have been
surprising.
Something. Yeah.
Yeah, given how highly regarded his writing is, you would think that a book that was like an ultimate Deadwood book or something would have at least excerpts or something.
Yeah, you would imagine. It might just be the process of how it was written that maybe things weren't kept afterwards. I would find that surprising, I guess. But if he's just writing scenes and sort of stapling them into the shooting script as they have, maybe there's no final version of it.
Yeah, that's possible.
So Cy's excellence in this one. Joanie takes off. Eddie's gone. And Cy has the tremendous final line, the only good woman's got maggots in her eyes, or something like that, as he licks his lips and glares. Yeah,
just brutal in this episode.
Yeah. What other scenes are in this one? We talked about the fight. Swearengen was decided to lose. Do you think it was right that Swearengen loses the fights? Because it was decided that Seth Bullock, being 20 years younger, was the only way that was actually possible to happen, which makes sense to me.
Yeah, I think I like the way the fight played out. I like that it was... again, they continue to do these things with Al where they keep him from being totally irredeemable by giving him little bits of humanity. Where if he sees the kid watching him, and that's what stops him from killing Bullock.
Yeah. Unmanned him. He's embarrassed later on, obviously.
Yes.
Yeah.
We didn't talk about the scene where William stares at the girl's boobs and then farts in the carriage.
Totally unrelated, but been there.
David, we're running long for time. What should we cut? We should cut the scene where Eddie gets killed. Okay. I feel like there's another scene we could cut for this episode.
No,
let's cut the Eddie scene.
Well,
all right.
In contrast to the "How are you doing" scene, the fart scene was 7 pages of script. That was magnificent. Those are the 12 pages that Mills was working on at the start of the season for days and days.
It's just description upon description of what William of just what he is seeing bursting out of the bustier of the woman across from him.
Just very much like the girl with the dragon tattoo. That author was obsessed in that book with what people were eating. I think Mills was just obsessed with what young William was eating on his carriage ride out. Yeah, that's funny that those two got stuck with the prostitutes that are coming out too. And imagine riding in that fucking cart for like 600 miles to get wherever you're going. Your back would be done by the end of it.
Yeah, and they're so close. It's such close quarters.
Yeah. Even with no windows, the farts, it's still just in there.
It's, you know what it's like? Imagine being on a plane with how close those seats are, but every seat is facing the one in front. Like they're just, you're facing the person in front of you instead of back to front.
Yeah, they can't talk. It's all that discomfort with each other back then too. I mean, it's obviously not easy to talk to people now. If you're staring at them, you get some psycho sitting across the plane seat from you.
I did also like, is it Tolliver who has the thing about the excitement of a new carriage coming to town, speculating who might be in it, if it's or
President
Hayes.
No, it's Tolliver. He's like President Hayes or something like that. Yeah, who might it be?
Yeah, I like that. That was good.
Joanie Stubbs and Miss Lila. What brings you to there this fine spring morning?
Stage from Bismarck.
Bismarck, you say? Don't the kid and all of us look forward to the new arrival? I still tingle at the bottom of my balls. Who could it be? President Hayes? Maybe it's jugglers or face painters. Where do you feel it, honey?
Bottom of your balls.
The telegraphs are coming in. We talked about that. I think that's pretty much it for all the scenes that's in this one. Bullock brings his family to the house at the very end. All that stuff. I'm just looking at the summary here. Bullock does his tryst. They fight. Welcome to fucking Deadwood. Yeah, I mean, I guess just focusing on Bullock's thing for a little bit before we go, because I think it is pretty important, and it feeds into the second part of this two-parter, allegedly, which is interesting that they thought it was a two-parter. The catchphrase of the show is the title of this one, which is a lie agreed upon. And I think that it summarizes a lot of what Deadwood is about, really, which is that we talked about earlier. It's just this sort of unspoken agreement that something that does not exist or is a construct is something that we have to agree on the way that it is. The Bullock marriage is a good example of that. I mean, marriage in general is kind of that idea, which is that it's a construction, but it is something. The lie is important in a lot of ways. The lie represents something. And I think Milch is obsessed with that idea in the show, and it's all starting to sort of crack around Bullock as what the lie means.
Were you quoting directly from your wedding vows just then?
I was, yeah. No, I lost our wedding vows on the day of the wedding, and Amy was very upset, so I couldn't.
Did you really?
I did. I was supposed to bring them, and I didn't.
So. For both of you?
Yeah. Thank you, Clay, for taking my side of things. I didn't. I forgot them. They were on like the nightstand or something.
Oh boy.
Oh well.
So what did you do?
Just improv it? Yeah. I said, take this trumpet, babe. Let's just improv this thing for a little bit. Yeah, I think we just improv'd it. It was fine because it was all just lovey-dovey stuff in the first place.
Webster's defines wedding as the removing of weeds from one's garden. I actually used that in a speech at a wedding. My buddy Dan was getting married, and for some reason he asked me to speak at it. And we are both bonded by the unbreakable bond of being too fluent in Simpsons language for our own good.
Yep.
And so I delivered probably the strangest speech at a wedding anyone's ever experienced. But it did involve me saying wedding. Webster's defines wedding as the removing of weeds from one's garden, which is still one of my absolute favorite jokes.
People in the audience going, meaning what? Yankton's making its move?
Yeah, no, everyone was very confused.
Yeah.
I was definitely playing to an audience of one.
It's very off topic. There's just some random Simpsons joke that popped up on my YouTube feed. It was like, I don't know what episode it is, but Homer's like running from a helicopter, like police helicopter or a reporting helicopter, and he's like trying to climb up a pipe to get on the other side of the fence. And like his legs are dangling in the most comical fashion. This is the silliest escape I've ever seen or something. It just made me laugh. Yeah, so I guess that's pretty much it. We'll get more of the Bullocks in the next episode. We'll get more of Seth in his recovery, and he goes back to Alma. And I guess we didn't talk about Ellsworth. Ellsworth has a pretty decent amount in this episode too, more than he had in the first couple episodes. But he escorts Alma around. My favorite Ellsworth moment is when Bullock glares at him for bringing Alma into the shop, and he just kind of shrugs. Like, I don't know what the fuck she wants to do, and has to leave with her.
Yeah, Bullock does most of this episode is just him like staring straight ahead.
Yeah,
with all of his emotion just sitting behind his eyeballs. We didn't talk about 30 seconds of Calamity Jane.
Oh yeah, that's right. She returns in this one. She just yells at the carriage as it goes by, right? That's the only scene that you see her. Yeah.
She wakes up from being passed out on her horse, screams cocksucker, and passes out again.
So she's still out there in the great wide open. Is Cochran in this episode? Do we see him?
Yeah, he is. He's pulling the bullet out of
that's
Saul.
right. Yeah, he does that. Yeah, and Saul getting fucked up on opium is enjoyable. I'm sorry I threw up twice.
Yeah, the doc has a great line where he says, "If you hadn't, I would have expected you had a previous habit or something like that."
Yeah. So Seth is not a fan of opium apparently, and has not had a problem with it prior to this. Yeah, I guess that's it then. Cool. So just final thoughts about this one. I like this one. I found this to be a very entertaining episode. It'll be interesting to see how it closes out. I do remember that this is a fairly unusual episode in that we saw this day from the morning until the night when Bullock drops off his family, and the next episode is through the night to the next morning. So it covers like an entire 24-hour period.
I guess that makes sense why they would say it's a two-parter.
Just because of that consistency.
Yeah, because this show doesn't exactly have screaming cliffhangers at the end of their episodes.
No. It's. I mean, it's weird that they. Yeah, it is just kind of weird that they decided this one was maybe just because they, while they were producing it, they imagined it to be a bigger event that was going to cross two episodes, but it doesn't really feel all that different for me outside of that time situation where no time passes between it. But
yeah,
we'll see. A Lie Agreed Upon Part 1 is over. I really enjoyed it. So hopefully my opinion about the second season is wrong, but we'll see. So who knows? I really love the antagonists in the third season, and maybe I'm just misremembering and it's actually a weaker season except for him, but we'll get there in time. That's it. Any final thoughts from you, Clay?
No, I'm looking forward to season 2. I remember nothing from this episode from the first time I watched it through, and I honestly don't even remember how deep into season 2 I got. Well, I know there is one indicator that will tell me how deep into season 2 I got, but that hasn't happened yet. So
is that a character appearance?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. So you at least made it to episode 3. So
yeah.
So we will check in next week with the second part of this one. We'll see how it wraps up. and let us know how you guys are enjoying the show, enjoying the podcast, enjoying something pretty. And you can join the Discord. You can join our Patreon at patreon.com/thepensky File. It's the best way to support us is over there. There's a Discord. You can also join that. There's some links down below and all the little podcast blurbs. You can talk about the show over there. Tell us your favorite quote. Tell us your favorite character. And I guess that's it. And Clay and Amanda have their Rotten Horror Picture Show podcast. Clay and Sean have the Badass podcast talking about Batman the Animated Series. All that stuff at thepenskyfile.com. You can check it out over there, along with all the 100-some-odd podcasts that are on Patreon at this point, too, covering sci-fi, other shows, Star Trek, blah, blah, blah. That's it for something pretty.
I do too much talking.
Yeah,
you're
we have
really
a lot of
pointing
talking.
that out to me.
I know, it's good. How come you're... like people wear out the other joint. It's kind of surprising your jaw doesn't wear out as like a common old age problem where you can't talk anymore.
Yeah,
it's kind of weird.
Point. Yeah,
people's arms and legs fall off and they can't use them anymore. I wonder why your jaw doesn't work that way. I don't know.
Maybe if you use it, maybe it wears out if you don't use it. You know what I mean? So it's like you're keeping it limber.
Is that a cunnilingus joke, Clay? Are you pulling an Al Swearengen on me as I'm saying that my mouth hurts and I can't keep talking here?
Yeah, I'm also desperately trying to piss myself right now. It's not happening.
Age impedes my stream. I don't have that yet. I don't know how old you have to be. Also, I guess that reminds me. Was Swearengen dyeing his hair in this episode? Did you notice that?
I didn't.
I was wondering if that was intentional, although no one brings it up. I thought that his hair looked unnaturally dark, and I was wondering if he was, in the face of about to fight Bullock and his like urinary problems. I was wondering if the character was going through a sort of like I'm younger than this kind of denial.
Oh, interesting. Yeah, I didn't notice it. I will say, however, I went to see John Wick 4 last week or the week before.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know if I would have noticed this if we hadn't been watching Deadwood, but Ian McShane really has that slight lisp people get now when they get veneers.
Oh, okay.
Because he's got perfect teeth in John Wick 4, and he's got a slight lisp to everything he says now, versus this when he doesn't have that at all. And I've noticed if it's usually when an older person specifically, I don't know why, I don't know if age has something to do with it, but
teeth.
when they get veneers put in, it's just it impedes the speech a little bit.
Yeah, turns us all into our inner Ferengi. That's it.
Yes.
Thanks everybody.
That's why when I need new teeth, I'm going full Klingon, baby.
Yeah, why not? If you're gonna have some horrible surgery where they drill holes into your jaw and screw in fake teeth, you might as well.
The thing about veneers, they freak me the fuck out because in order to get them, they first have to file down your current teeth into like little shark teeth, nubby shark teeth stubs, and it's just like I don't know, it's creepy. I find it to be a very creepy process.
No, it's not fun.
Because you're choosing to destroy the rest of your teeth.
Right, yeah. Well, it'd be better to go out in a blaze of glory, I guess, than having your teeth just crack while you're eating a walnut or something like that.
That's true. That's a good point, I guess.
Do you find that dental appointments are getting much longer than they used to be? Do you notice that?
I have not.
Okay.
I have not noticed.
I feel
sounds like you got to take better care of your teeth.
No, it's just the cleaning. I never have cavities.
Yeah.
Amy gets mad at me because I eat candy like a fucking idiot all day, and I don't get cavities. And Amy brushes her teeth 5 times a day. Has like a $500 toothbrush that like shoots water in between her teeth and stuff like that.
Oh yeah, the water pick.
Yeah, the water pick. She has that, and she still gets cavities, and I don't.
Yeah.
But it's my cleanings. I feel like a cleaning used to be half an hour, and now I'm in there for like an hour and 15. It just takes so long to get cleanings done. I don't know.
Yeah, I got my first cavity ever last year.
Wow.
Yeah, and that was after not going to the dentist for enough years that I'm not going to say because it's kind of embarrassing. But so much so that the doctor said,
"This is embarrassing."
I don't know. No. That when she looked at my teeth, she was like, "I don't know what you did, but you're playing with house money or something." Because
because they stayed in good shape.
Yeah.
Well,
just got to take care of them.
It's genetics.
So anytime Amy gets another cavity, just tell her she's got to take better care of her teeth.
Yeah, it would be like Clayton.
I'm sure that'll go down.
Clayton
really
didn't go
well.
to the dentist for 7 years. He didn't get a single cavity. Look at you. Look at what did you buy this toothbrush for? Then I knock it on the ground like Cy Tolliver and say that's what you got.
You can tell her I said that, but don't tell her I said the other thing at the beginning of the show.
That's fine. Well, let's get back to our hobbies of pickling things in cunt brine as we get to the next episode.
So gross.
What a great Cy Tolliver line.
Oh, it's so like that's a line where you write that and you get shivers up your own back and you're like, yeah, I got it. I nailed that one.
It's the perfect choice of the word brine. Like
that's
no
the
other
worst
word.
part.
Yeah, no other word would work.
Yeah. The combination of pickling and brine is what really does it.
All right, everybody. This is it. We're done. See you in part 2 next week. Bye.
Dear Mrs. Bullock, your house is near finished. My satisfaction does not exceed the camp's lumbermen and sawyers, whose patience I have tried by my overwatchful eye for greenness and for good square-edged quality in the cutboards. I have chosen pine, 1 year seasoned for the sills, post, floor joists, and rafters. The other framing timber is of spruce. Where partitions bear upon them, I have doubled the beams and supported the floor with locust posts set 3 feet into the ground. I think you may laugh to see the mullioned windows with their view of the camp from out the parlor. Being unfinished, they look like unfocused eyes. I have left these and all final decorative choices to your superior judgment and sensibility.
Go for the prize inside!
I hope that you and the boy may arrive in good health and safety. I look forward to our opportunity to better get to know each other. I pray that in my brother's stead, I may be permitted to be a father to the boy, as good as Robert would have been, and as to your care and comfort and safety, as good a husband to you. Yours sincerely, Seth Bullock.